Okay,
Okay.
so I have arranged my search so that I am showing the records that I want. I have searched for whites residing in Alabama. I have filtered it down to the 1850 census and down to people living in Montgomery. So this is now ready to go to Excel. You go to Preferences.
Thank you.
There's Search, which is what we've got here, and Preferences is how am I looking at the data? And you can play around with it, fixed table versus data sheet. I have not yet explored, and I look forward to seeing what you find when you say, I want my option to be in the original text. I'm wondering, well, I will be looking at Hungarian documents to see if they are actually indexed in the original text. And then you want to set your export search results to a format that is appropriate for whatever spreadsheet program you're using. And for me, I found that the XLSX is the right one that I use for my version of Excel. And if you need help figuring that out, I'll help you out with that. And the other thing you want to make sure is to check the number of results, because the default is set to 20. And if I did that, I would not get all 33. So you want to make sure that you're going for the maximum. And then you export the results. It downloads it to wherever you want. You give it the name that you want to give it, and you're off and running. So we had the import of the files from FamilySearch, and I have selected the top section to delete because it has useless information. Now, a couple of other things are going on here that may look a little confusing. These little green triangles are telling you that it's confused whether this is a text or a number. And so I'm going to select all of these guys. I'll start at the top. I'll hold down Shift, Control, and hit the down arrow to select all of these that had that little green triangle. And there's this yellow, watch here. When you hover on that, a little arrow shows up. Click on that and say convert to number. And I'm going to do that. Well, it's not really necessary, but just for the sake of going through it again. Shift, Control, down arrow, hover, click on the list, and set to convert to number. All right, now let's look at what else we've got. The score I'm not interested in. That is a score that FamilySearch calculates based on how closely something meets the settings that you gave it. And I really, the probability, I could not care less. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to get rid of some other things as well that are not saying anything useful. Well, I know it's a JPEG. I don't need that column. Batch number. Well, that's kind of interesting. There's different numbers in there. That may be useful to me at a future point. This is the indexing batch numbers. So something that was indexed with the same number are probably closer to each other than two things that were indexed under different numbers. So I'm going to keep that one. When it goes to role in record, everybody's a principal. Let's get rid of that. And relationship to the head of household. Well, that's empty because, and I can see that quickly by clicking on the heading and then clicking end, letting go, and down, letting go. And it takes me to the next cell that has something that has a change in status, either empty or full. And they're all the same status of empty because in 1850, there was no information about who was related to whom. And so we're going to keep the birth. We're going to take a look at these others and make sure that they are empty and get rid of them. Now, this is interesting. Don't assume, oh, well, they're all blank from here on. They aren't. This is where it becomes useful. The 1850 census is indexed to tell you the names of the other people in the household. So it's not indexed to tell you information like marriage date and burial date. So we can get rid of all of these. And there are no other events in that 1850 census that are enumerated and or indexed. And so we'll get rid of that. So now we have the individuals, and we have names of the people that are in their households. Okay. So I could, well,
Hey.
let's.
Hey, excuse me.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you get rid of column A? I don't see anything different.
Well, I got rid of,
It's like ARKID. What is that?
oh, I got rid of score, but I'm keeping ARKID, and you're going to see why in just a second.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. All right. So this has given me now a list of a bunch of people, and I can see, like, I've got Elizabeth White, Joseph White, Mary White, Cullen White, and William White. And then down here, I have those people again. So these people in row 9 and row 13 and 14 have to be in the same household. But that's a lot of work trying to figure, trying to look at and notice all of those. Okay, here I've got Elizabeth White. Okay, so they're all over. So I wondered, is there some way that I can organize these so people are going to show up in the order that their households are listed in the census? And that's where I looked at that ARC ID. And so I said, all right, let's see what happens if I sort by that ARC ID. So I'm going to, let me say, go again. If I click on this little triangle in the top left corner of my active screen, it selects the entire spreadsheet. And now I can go to sort it, and I'm going to do a custom sort. And I'm going to tell it, my data has headers. And see, it's automatically said these are not data, these are the headers. And I want to sort by that ARC ID number. We're going to sort it by cell values, and we're going to go in numerical order. And when I do that, you can see that, yes, there does seem to be some patterns that show up. We've got Henry White. Let me get this organized. Whoops. Okay. All right. So we've got Henry White is at M36, and he's in the household with Diana White and Catherine White. And so now we've got them down here as well. So it's not a perfect system, but it does some initial grouping. And so what I can do is I can add call it a household number. And I can say, okay, the Henry Whites, we're going to call them household 1. And the Elizabeth Whites, we could call them household, well, Phoebe White. Phoebe has her own group of people, James Galliman and so forth. So we could call her household 2. And then we have Elizabeth, Joseph, Cullen. They'd be household 3. And I can go down until I get into another group. So now we're looking at the group that has John, Adeline, Sarah, Hubert, and go in and mark them. So that's one way that I can identify the, and let me just finish doing that. And then we have Eliza White, and now here we have another of, okay, no. You got to make sure that you haven't thrown in some errors. So it does look, and so I'm going to actually hide this stuff for a moment. So I'm going to select the columns that I want to hide. I'm not getting rid of them, I'm just hiding them. And when I want to bring them back, I just span the area where they're hidden. You can see there's a couple of lines there, and I right click and say unhide. So it's very easy to make things clearer and easier to look at by just organizing those columns. And okay, so we have Henry, Catherine, Diana, and that seems to be another household. And now we have Lucius, Mary. We got Lucius, Lucius. Here's Lucius. Okay, so that's another household. And here's our Martha. And we're going to actually mark her with a, well, let's just keep her in household 8. But I'm going to give her the color bright red because I want her to stand out. And let's see, we've got William Murray. So he seems to be unique. We're going to put him in 9. And then we've got, in Chambers, we've got this big group with Temperance, and they're all 10. And I'll copy that. Okay. So I had 10 households. All right. I'm going to jump ahead. What I did was I ended up giving them colors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I can't remember what happened to 10. Well, for some reason, I have an extra one thrown in. Well, that's just, I'll need to go back and see where I made that mistake, but I double checked this group. So I actually had 9 families and I made them in different colors. And I did that just by highlighting again, clicking and dragging, and then selecting a fill that I wanted to use for highlighting all of these as one family. Another thing that I did was I selected the whole set and I think that I am going to do this here. So let me go through and actually walk through it. So we've got 1, we've got 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Let's get that and 6. And 7. And 8. I've got 9 seems to be a household on its own. And then 10. Okay. Go to use that one. Okay, so I've got them all unique. Now, the other thing that I did was I highlighted them and I said, let's sort them by household. Again, my data has headers. So I'm sorting them by household. And now I want to sort by birth date. And birth date is one of them that I've got hidden. But if we sort them, I can unhide. Okay. So now we've got, and let's make these that are singles bright. So we've got Phoebe and all right, so we've got Phoebe is a single white. We have Martha is a single white, and we have a James as a single white. And they're all living in households with non-white people. Now, another nice thing about this arc thing is when you click on it, it takes you to the page for that entry. And so we can see the house, Phoebe White's entry, the household that she is in, and we can click on the image to look directly at the image and see if there's something important that is left out of the indexing. And so we've got, all right, we've got this Galliman household, and they're from Georgia and South Carolina. And we have Phoebe, and her birthplace is unknown. Well, that really suggests to me that Phoebe is not the mother of one of these guys. Like, she is not Mary's mother, probably, because Mary would probably know where her mother was born and would probably make a guess at it. So it really is looking like Phoebe is a stranger in this household. Somebody who maybe was taken in by a family. And let's see what that mark up there is. Person over 20 years of age who doesn't read and write. All right, so we have Phoebe, not surprising for her age and the fact that she is a woman, that she's not able to read. Okay, so we've got her, and let's look at our other singles. We've got Martha, and let's pull her up just to see where she, what page she's on. And she is in household 540, whereas this was household 336. So there's a couple of hundred households apart from them. So that, that suggests that they're pretty far apart. This is Alabama, Montgomery County, and Montgomery County is separated into Montgomery County. Okay, whoops. Let's get back to where we were. Okay. All right, so we've got Phoebe, who is in Montgomery County and in household 336, with people who do not know very much about her. And then we have Martha in household 540, and we know that she is not related to these people. And we have one more person who is in a household by themselves. And it is somebody who is around Martha's age. What household is he in? So let's take a look. All right, now, when you look at the index for this, one of the first things that strikes your eye is, boy, he's living with a lot of men. And that really screams out boarding house to me. And so what we have is, we have William Murray and Mary Murray. William's a carpenter, Mary possibly his wife, possibly not, might be a sister. She's 11 years younger. And then we have a whole bunch of men, bricklayer, carpenter, bricklayer, bricklayer, bricklayer. We have a merchant, we have carpenter. And we have, interestingly enough, for John Davis, his occupation is listed as none. But James White, his occupation is listed as blank. Now, that could just be because here's another 14-year-old and without an occupation. So it looks like this household of tradesmen, of craftsmen, has taken in 3 young men possibly as apprentices. There's no other person named White, Davis, or Martin in here. So it suggests that these are people who did not have a home of their own and are sort of getting room and board by being an apprentice. So we have now 3 people that we have identified as being strangely disconnected from any other whites. And that's Phoebe, who's age 63, Martha, who's born in 1837-ish, and James, who was born in 1836-ish. James may be a little bit older. On the other hand, we can't be sure about James. Maybe there was like a cutoff and he lied about his age to say he was older so that he could be taken in by this household as an apprentice. But it's suggestive that this James may be related to Martha, and that they may be related to Phoebe because she also has no other whites that she's connected to. And so I used this to look at the whole community of people with the surname White living in Montgomery County, Alabama, because I thought it odd that a 13-year-old girl was in the middle of the state unaccompanied by anybody with her surname. And so I found 2 other unaccompanied people that now I can start focusing my research on them. Can I find out more about them that might lead me to a family, perhaps in the 1840 census, that would have a daughter who was under the age of 5, a son perhaps under the age of 5, and a female. Now, with her birthplace unknown, I also think that her age has to be taken with a grain of salt. So, but I've got a couple more pieces of data that I can start searching for. So this is one way that I have used Excel this week.